Today on the newscast, it's the biggest Middle East story you haven't heard about. An Iranian proxy just attacked an international airport with drones less than 2 weeks before the 9/11 anniversary. Get all the breaking details next. Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast. We're going to get into the biggest Middle East story that you probably have not heard about. It's been overshadowed this week, understandably, by the crisis in Afghanistan. By the way, President Biden gave a defiant speech from the White House yesterday defending the disastrous U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. He called it, quote, an extraordinary success, even though up to 200 U.S. citizens were left stranded in Afghanistan, even though thousands of Afghans who literally put their necks on the line and defied the Taliban to work with the U.S., they're also stranded, even though some $85 billion in advanced American weaponry was also left behind in the hands of the Taliban, and even though the standing in the world of the United States is damaged perhaps beyond repair in the eyes, certainly, of our adversaries, more on that in a minute, but also in the eyes of our allies. It's tough to see it any other way than the U.S. has been severely weakened by the Afghanistan debacle, but not according to Joe Biden. He says again, this was an extraordinary success. I beg to differ, and I've got a great example for you already of the repercussions of that Afghanistan disaster for the Middle East, for the U.S., and for the world. On Monday and Tuesday, big story you may have missed, was not widely reported. The Houthi rebels, remember them? We've talked about them a lot here in the newscast over the months. Afghanistan has obviously captured the headlines over the past few weeks, but the Houthi rebels, according to our own State Department here in the U.S., have carried out, brace yourself, at least 240 attacks since January 1st against Saudi Arabia. And we saw it once again on Monday and Tuesday. The Houthis launched several drones against Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi air defenses shot a few of these down, but one of them did break through, and it struck Abha International Airport in southwestern Saudi Arabia. This attack drone packed with explosives. We've seen this time and time again over the past few months, right? These Iranian proxies using these so-called kamikaze drones, flying them into a target. Well, it happened again this week. Abha International Airport was struck by an explosive-laden drone, and 8 people were wounded, and also a commercial airliner was damaged. They also, this week, the Houthis launched a ballistic missile into Saudi Arabia, and again, you've got 240, an astounding number of attacks since January 1st alone, carried out by the Houthis against targets in Saudi Arabia, oftentimes using this hybrid model of attack drones and ballistic missiles used in tandem to barrage sites throughout Saudi Arabia, not only airports, and again, deliberately targeting civilians at this airport, a war crime by any standard. The Houthis are up to some very dangerous business, and let's remember, the Houthis are backed, they're financed, they're trained, they're funded by the Iranian regime. They are Iran's proxy in Yemen, and they continue on the march. They're conquering more territory in that country, again, at Saudi Arabia's doorstep and right along the coastline, look, of that vital waterway, the Red Sea. Now, a pretty bold attack, to say the least, this week to attack an airport. Were they emboldened by the lack of will shown on the world stage in recent weeks by the United States? The word I've been using in recent days here on the newscast is accelerate. Acceleration now by bad actors around the world, and that includes the Iranian regime. Will they accelerate their plans in the region, not only against Israel, but against Saudi Arabia and the Sunni Arab nations? Folks, I can tell you the Iranian regime would like nothing more than to control Mecca and Medina, the holy sites in Islam, which are located in Saudi Arabia. The Iranian regime sees itself as the standard bearer for Islam in the world. The Saudis also see themselves in that role. There is a Cold War that has gone increasingly hot between the Saudis and Iran. You could say the Saudis in many ways, by virtue of having the holiest sites in Islam on their soil, are in many ways the standard bearer of Sunni Islam. Iran clearly sees itself as the standard bearer of Shia Islam, and that collision course continues. Now, the Iranian regime sees the U.S. taking a major blow right at its border, by the way. Iran and Afghanistan border each other, and perhaps they are emboldened and empowered to act, and they're telling the Houthis, leave it all out there. Throw everything you have at the Saudis. Strike an airport. You're not going to have the kind of response that will deter us. Perhaps when the U.S. was firmly engaged, there would be second thoughts on the part of the Iranian regime and its proxies, but we're not seeing that right now. And remember the ring of fire that we've talked about so much here on the newscast. The Houthis are a part of that ring of fire which surrounds Israel right now. The Houthis to the south in Yemen, Hezbollah to the north in Lebanon, Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas to the south in Gaza, Iraqi Shia militias to the east, and also Hezbollah and various radical actors in Syria to the north as well, literally forming a ring around Israel and armed to the teeth with attack drones like were used in this attack this week and ballistic missiles, hundreds of thousands all told when you add them all up, the various arsenals that this ring of fire possesses, and of course the Iranian regime as well. Could this blueprint that Iran has been putting together to surround Israel on all sides with heavily armed proxies, could their plan now, there's that word again, accelerate now that they don't see a credible U.S. friend, ally, not only for Israel, but for Saudi Arabia as well? Remember, Israel clearly threatened by the Iranian regime's plans, but Saudi Arabia, as we're seeing in real time right now, as we're laying out here, Egypt, Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, all have an eye on that growing Shia superpower, the Iranian regime, which is forming an arc across the region from Tehran to the Mediterranean. That is the goal, and they are well on their way to accomplishing that. Now, another thing to keep in mind here when we talk about accelerating, the Iranian regime, even before the Afghanistan debacle really went into overdrive, sent an attack drone against an Israeli-owned, Israeli-operated cargo ship off the coast of Oman a few weeks ago. Last month, 2 people were killed in that attack by an attack drone on that ship. That was a major escalation for sure. Israel has not retaliated, at least publicly yet, for that attack, but we are keeping a close eye on that as that tit for tat at sea continues between Iran and Israel. One last thing to mention in terms of acceleration, the Iranian government. Folks, right now in Tehran, you have the most radical Iranian government perhaps that we've ever seen in the 42 years since the Iranian Revolution of 1979. Ibrahim Raisi, the Butcher of Tehran, which is his not so pleasant nickname, he is now the president of Iran. He's very close to the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. They are working in lockstep. Raisi seen as a potential successor to Khamenei, and Raisi just announced his cabinet picks, and his government is littered with people wanted for terrorism crimes, people who've been sanctioned by the United States, who are close to Hezbollah. It's a rogues gallery at the top, literally a terrorist government in Tehran right now. So certainly that situation could accelerate things as well. If this is a hardline revolutionary government with expansionist aims, they may activate their proxies to a greater degree and probe. Remember, there's a new government in Jerusalem as well. May probe, may test Israel's new government, see what they can get away with now that the Biden administration clearly has projected tremendous weakness on the world stage. It is a tinderbox right now. The Afghanistan situation, again, just accelerated things and put them into overdrive. Here is the good news. God Almighty still sits on the throne, and as these events continue to rapidly unfold, we will document them for you every day right here on the Watchman Newscast. Stay in prayer. We do have a blessed hope. His name is Jesus, and that's who I'm following right now. As the waves are crashing and the winds are roaring, I know he is in the boat with me. So thanks so much for joining us here on the Watchman Newscast. Until tomorrow, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see more, make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, click subscribe, and tap the bell icon to turn on notifications for new Watchman Newscast episodes every weekday.